thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
So what was it like transferring from being with Brenda as kind of like her
Antagonist,
overseeing, yes,
you can say it.
to actually being the captain of the unit?
Well, it was a little trepidatious at times. We had to be very thoughtful about the transition. James was obviously very thoughtful, and the writing staff. And I felt that the single most important thing was that the transition was authentic, that the fans were not asked to suddenly like someone that they had no reason to prior to that moment. I mean, some people did, but, in a generalized sense. So what was really important to me, and James agreed and did it, and the writers did it, was that we didn't push Sharon Raydor out of her own skin during the transition. We just took it very slowly and carefully. She's very good at not being liked. So, it was not really that much of a problem to her that the guys in Major Crimes did not want this, because she's used to IA. Nobody likes IA.
Right.
I mean, she has got a tough skin. And it's been her focus for a long time is to observe and run things, but not look for a relationship. So on the one hand, it wasn't that hard for her to wait until they got to really work together, which is how she believes people develop relationships. So with all that in mind, it was thoughtful and careful. But because we went that way, it was less trepidatious than it would have been if we tried to suddenly make her into a likable person.
Do you think that the Rusty mom kind of brought her?
Oh, totally. I mean, that was salvation, really, in terms of structure. Because although the audience was really kind of bought her at work right away, surprisingly. Well, not surprisingly, because of the way we did it, they didn't get to know her until she was home with Rusty. So the Rusty part of it allowed them to begin to develop some thoughts about her as a woman and a person, as opposed to Darth Raydor or now Captain Sharon Raydor or Sharon. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So, yeah, it was, Graham is just delightful. So the chemistry was good. It was a perfect structural opportunity when he showed up on the scene at the end of the closer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what's interesting? I was actually watching this with my son. There was a scene that you had with your older son, and he resented Rusty.
Yes.
And you said, "You are such a big disappointment."
Yes.
And my son goes, "Yeah, see, Mom, that's how you have to talk to me."
Yeah.
Did you use that experience? I mean, how did you come up with that? The way you phrased it was like perfect.
Well, that was James' writing. I mean, they wrote it that way, literally wrote it that way. The writing was so spot on. I felt I worked with him a little bit on, nudging it here and there. But that was the scene where the first time I read it, I went, this is in pretty good shape. Do you know what I mean? Like, he really got it. And I think the key to it was that we had talked a lot about the fact that she gave her own children everything that she could, and that her expectations of them were going to be very high. And so to give a kid that kind of knowledge and education and love and support, Sharon had a grandparents. There was everything for these kids, except, of course, they had a dysfunctional father and sort of a divorce, but not really. But, do you know what I mean? They probably went to the best private schools in LA, did it. Progressive ideas, liberal ideas, humanitarian ideas. And this kid is getting jealous and wonky and making not very nice comments about the kind of kid Rusty is. That was like, we talked about what would her standards be for her own son. And they'd be pretty high.
Right.
So, but what I also loved about it, I said to James, she's not going to be careful around her own son. Their relationship is solid. She knows this boy, she's raised this boy, she adores him. They can go at it the way she can't go at it with Rusty. She doesn't know Rusty's emotional background. She could never treat Rusty like she can her son. She could never get pissed at him and say, "Are you kidding? Think of what I'm calling you right now." Never could she do that with Rusty. She didn't raise him. He's not in her DNA. She knows his troubled childhood. There could be places in that boy that you could just accidentally, and in the very beginning with Rusty, she was always very careful because she thought he would bolt. And to keep him protected long enough till he grew some self-esteem was her goal. It still is, And now it's, extended to giving him family and security and insurance and, all that stuff. But her own son, she has more latitude there. So you can call a spade with your own son, is how I feel. That is kind of how I am as a mother, too, and James and I talked about that.
So Rusty, your character is going to adopt him.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Is she going to open up at all, or is she still, because he's so vulnerable, is that?
I don't know. We'll see. I do think that they're already expanding a bit. The first episode that we shot after the adoption, I don't want to give anything away, but I will say that already I felt almost instantly they're more behavioral and relaxed in the same home. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
There's all the potential in the world for the two of them to grow. But back to what you brought up, the delineation between how tough you can be on your own kid and know that in the long run, they'll do the right thing. She knew, particularly if she's honest with him and cuts loose on him, there's a part of her that knows that's Ricky's going to come around. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
If she was careful with him and indulged him, he'd be a jerk.
Right.
Because he's had everything. You can't do that. You spoil them. That's how I feel.
So, working mom?
Yeah.
How does that play into your role? Because, single mom, working mom, in a sense.
Yeah. I think that the single moms or working moms that I've known, and I'm sure you know a few too, if you're not one yourself.
I know.
You are, okay. My experience is that they think about things almost more consciously, almost double time over time, because they don't have that other parent to kind of balance out the responsibility and the thinking, the talking through, and sort of making decisions as to how to do it. So Sharon has that quality anyway. That's why she was an IA to begin with. She goes deep. She won't let up until she has an answer. It's got to happen. And that kind of completely no stone unturned is kind of the single momming part of it for me. She can't lean on anyone.
Do you think there's a lot of guilt because, especially Sharon, she works really late with Rusty and...
No? I don't think she's guilty. I think she knows that this young man has a life that he could never have had. And I don't think either one of them can afford some of those normal guilt trips. They're in an unusual situation. And she would like to be home more, but I also think that she's very careful not to suffocate him. He has lived a life on the streets. And if she was around him all the time, it would be too much. It would be too much for him. So she, I don't think, goes through guilt. It's more like very careful to not. She knows when she goes too far.
You know what I found interesting about your character, and tell me if you disagree.
Sure.
But in when you're the police, the commander, you ask questions. You don't give the person the answer. And I used to do that with my kids as a mom. I wouldn't want to just give them the answer. Well, what do you think? Or kind of put everything. Did you do that, or was that done intentionally?
Yes, it was done intentionally. Once again, I will say it was a combination of a conversation that I had with James about leadership, my feelings about strong female leaders of my generation. That in combination with structurally wanting to, in the spin-off in Major Crimes, that the ensemble would be more active. So there was both a structural reason for that and an organic psychological reason for it, because my experience with really strong female leaders is that they draw out the best from their team. They don't give orders. And I've seen it over and over again. And I think that women in power, if they've had the confidence and luck to get into positions in a way where they have not had to abandon how they would do things naturally, are more collective, inclusive, inspiring people to do. They're great delegators. They're whatever, rather than the egoic male paradigm of I'm the boss now, do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
So I got excited about playing, one of these women now that's out there running the world. And I did a little research too. And women of my age had been through a certain kind of acid test to get to the positions of power. And part of what I've experienced is they've learned how to navigate big rooms filled with men in a way that allows the men to not be intimidated and give their best. And it sounds a little manipulative, so I don't mean it, but it doesn't feel that way when you're doing it. It feels more like collaborative, delegating, and kind of coordinating,
Would you want, so do you want to be a role model? Or do you think your character is a role model for women, young women?
I think she has become a bit of a role model. I didn't set out to be that at all. Clearly, I was playing Darth Raydor at the beginning, although I thought she was a bit of a role model, but it never occurred to me. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I want this character to be this. She has just grown, and I have been quite amazed by the response, particularly with young women and some young men. So I've been really amazed by it.
Yeah, because it's a woman in a male-dominated profession.
That's right.
In a supervisory role.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
What about the fact that you came into this role from, do you think you'll ever have Brenda come back at all in any kind of situation?
Well, I'm not the executive producer, but, I think it'd be great fun, personally. Do you know what I mean? I loved working with Kira. We worked together really well. Just on a personal level, our scenes were so much fun. We just had good chemistry. Do you know what I mean? So that would always be welcome. That's always welcome to actors. It's like you love working with actors that you click with.
I noticed, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you're acting, you do a lot of facial expressions, body language through your acting.
Yeah.
Is that intentional?
I don't think it's intentional as much as people notice it and so they photograph it. Do you know what I mean? What I learned was that acting was listening. If you could listen well and experience the person who was speaking, and really absorb what was happening, then most of your job is done. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And James saw that. So as she evolved, he's used that more and more as part of Sharon.
How come you haven't made Commander?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Yes, tell me why.
This is my opinion, but I'm just shooting at the hip here. Right? Or shooting from the hip. I'm not shooting at the hip. That would hurt. I think that it's kind of, how do I put this? Do I really want to give this opinion? I kind of think they like keeping me a captain.
Because see, that to me is like the woman not getting promoted kind of situation. So is that?
I would love us to explore that in the writing. I would, and I put it out there once or twice. We haven't done it yet, but there was that one conversation where I said to, what's his name, my boss, the Assistant Chief Taylor, you told me.
Right.
You were going to give me Commander, and he said, you should be happy with what you have, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So We haven't reapproached it yet. We haven't come in for a landing on that one yet, since she has, what she decided to do is leave it alone and get major crimes running to the best that she possibly could and stop, and she decided to not worry about rank. And in a way, it was the right choice, because I notice even when she's dealing with the chief or when she's dealing with a commander, as much as she respects rank, Sharon packs a wallop. She doesn't, to a certain extent, need the rank, but now she deserves the rank, if you know what I'm saying. So maybe it will be a story further down the line. We're going to be on the air forever, you see. So
I hope so.
where's Andy, right? Yes, aren't we? So we've got plenty of time to explore. Maybe I'll be chief someday, but I'll be in a wheelchair by then.
Well, then you'll be handicapped.
Chief Ironsides.
You'll be handicapped and a woman.
Oh my God.
And if they over the age of 55, you can get three things in there. What do you want viewers to get out of your character?
Humanity, authenticity, something about the integrity of having to navigate tough decisions about people. You know, it's not hard. It's really hard being a cop. It's really hard in ways that I've been surprised about. You know what I mean? It's not hard to draw a gun. It's not, do you know what I mean? The scary thing, stuff we think is scary, it's scary, but no, you're trained to do it, is what I found out. It's pretty, that's the easy part. And not easy, but the less complicated part. The complicated part is that you see people who have made horrible, horrible mistakes. And not all of them are evil and psychotic. And for Sharon, because she's got some wisdom and empathy, navigating those waters and learning how to stay true to the law when you're putting a human being that you can kind of relate to under, you know what I mean? That's the hard part, and I would love people to understand, and I think they already do from this show, from the closer forward, they understand police in a way that's really tangible to them because of our guys, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And Kira and everything. And I think continuing to do that, to bring people to the screen in this kind of situation who are not psychotic cops, let's just start with that, who are not highly dysfunctional, who are not crazy dramatic, who are not great cops but alcoholics, who are not great cops but secret serial killers, whatever. Let's just turn on the TV. Hello, you know what I mean? It's like, what? So here's a show about cops with people on it that are very, very accessible to people. They're kind of normal in a beautiful way. And the popularity is growing, and I think it's partially because of that. Because where do we go? I mean, there are a couple other shows I can mention that are like that. I think that's true with, you know, Rizzoli and Isles, our friends, you know what I mean? But in general, what we see on TV, people who play cops and how they act and who they are and stuff, cops are really scary, dysfunctional people as much as we love watching the drama of it. And I like that we're giving a little bit of a balance to the picture.
Right. What I like about it is the heroes are true heroes. You're not anti-heroes.
Thank you. You said it much more succinctly.
Well.
So why don't you just erase what I please get you just that's exactly what I was trying to say for the past half hour. Oh my gosh.
So has your character evolved at all? To me, she has.
Yeah.
Because she used to be like strictly by the rules. Now you're willing to bend a little. Is that true?
To me, she hasn't changed at one iota. It's just that we only saw her through one very specific lens originally. We saw her in relationship to Brenda. We saw her have to police Brenda, have to police the police, have to impose the constraints of use of force, of all those things that IA has to handle. And that is very narrow. By nature, it has to be. That's the point of it. If you don't enforce and impose very strict rules on police behavior, there's going to be a lot of trouble out there, and there's going to be a lot of lawsuits, and there's going to be some chaos. So that's the only way we saw her. Do you know what I mean? So we thought, that's who she is. To me, she was always all these other things, but that was her job there. So now this new job has required her to use different parts of herself. And that's how I feel she's evolved. Plus, we feel like she's evolved because we've seen her open up. We've seen who she is as a mother. In my opinion, she was always that mother. We just didn't know that. This is the same woman who showed up and broke that yellow tape and came on in the Darth Raider raincoat in the first episode. It's the same woman, but we know more about her now. That's how I feel.
Do you see, or do you want her to change at all in any which way?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I don't care, whatever. I'd love to just have more life, you know,
Personal
more adventure,
stuff?
more adventure. I also do like it very much when she gets involved in the crime scenes. Not every week. Not every week. Don't. Calm down back there. But I like it when she goes out there.
Yeah, because
I like it a lot.
For me, I noticed the first couple of seasons, she was out there a lot more than
Yeah.
you are, like last season.
Yep.
Than you were last season.
Yep.
So you're saying you want more of the...
I'm saying I do like it, and I think it's important for her to get out there irregularly, but definitely enough that we know that she does. Because she's pretty good at things, and it's surprising and fun when we get to see it. She's not just a bureaucrat.
Right. Is there anything you want to add that I haven't asked?
Oh, my goodness, I don't know. I guess just that it's wonderful talking about it when someone asks good questions, as you have, because we don't always experience what's happening to us when we're doing a TV show until someone asks us. You know, we don't think, I want my character to go from here to here in the course of a year. This is this quality or that quality. And most actors do not work that way. We're pretty much swimming in the dark trying to find the moment of reality in every scene. And then you look back and go, and then the fans tell you, or a great, journalist tells you what they've actually seen happen that hopefully you haven't been conscious of. Because if you're conscious of it, you're not doing the right work. You're not in the moment, living it. So it's a pleasure to sort of go over it and kind of figure out what has happened.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
welcome.
your time for Crime Spring. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.